Wonder Woman issue 22, legacy number 822. Tom King writing with CAITLIN YARSKY on the art. So we're not quite back at Sempier yet. That's coming soon. And I guess this is because, well, this is part of what we're doing with Mouse Man. This is a flashback issue to the first time, seemingly, that Diana and Steve, for that matter, encountered Mouse Man, and the attack of the giant mace on the White House, which is...
Or the Capitol.
Or the is it the Capitol? Sorry, I did it all the time.
It's the Capitol, yes.
I always mix those up for some reason.
You're fine.
So this is an amusing issue. It definitely felt like it tonally was in the realm of what some of the main story's done. Obviously, the main story in this book has been a lot darker and more serious with the Sovereign stuff, but it does have its moments of levity. Particularly with the Wonder Girls and characters like that. I think this all being built around it's the morning after Steve and Diana have had sex for the first time, and he feels a little weird and insecure that she sort of left before he woke up. So there's a lot of like reacting to the giant mice that are attacking the Capitol, and also him trying to bring up, hey, that was nice last night. Can we like see each other again? And that's what the issue's doing. It's kind of bouncing between those two things. And it's a lot of Steve reacting to the fact that there's giant mice, and you know, just some nice bits like Diana saying, no, don't shoot the mice, it's not their fault, they don't deserve to be shot, and Steve not quite understanding. But there's a nice little payoff to that, because a couple of pages later, when someone else is going to shoot a mouse, Steve jumps in and yells, no shooting the mice. And I found that quite endearing and funny, because like he's already like taken to heart everything she said to him. Which is nice.
He is hanging on her every word, right? If you don't get the vibe that he is completely infatuated with her, and not in a creepy way, right? But he is hanging on Diana's every word, you know, and it just makes it feel like a special connection. Because it's the way that he wrestles the gun away from that guy, right?
Did you like Mouse Man riding a giant mouse with a saddle on its back?
It's very funny. You know,
I can't say I'm very familiar with Mouse Man, but I'm enjoying the general kind of vibe that because it feels like, okay, he's been treated like kind of a joke character. Like, I'm not saying he's quite the Kite Man of Wonder Woman, but it does feel like, hey, there's an inherent silliness to everything that's happening here. And I feel like what they teased in the present day story feels a lot more sinister and a lot more serious. So I'm actually really curious how we transition him from this to that.
So there is a darkness to him though, because the fact that he's using the mice, right? Like, they're indispensable. But Diana takes time to talk to one of them, and it's a regular sized mouse, and she's like, oh, this is just one of the regular capital mice that lives here. Says that the other ones, what does she say? The other ones have been controlled by a man in a costume. He has ears like hers. And just the way that the mouse is talking to her, this is the closest Diana's ever felt like a Disney princess. Right? The way that she's talking, and this was just where this book has been with the type of darkness that we've had around the Sovereign and what he had done to Diana and stuff. Her resetting here with this lightness of her bending down to talk to the mouse and how expressive the mice are. It's definitely, you know, the change in pace is an interesting choice. You know, I feel like this is King going, hey, this might get a bit darker, so enjoy some of the levity while we can.
No, I enjoyed this, and I think the art here, I'm not super familiar with the artist, but she whether it was intentional because it's a flashback story or it's just her style looks like this, but like everyone does look a bit younger. Like Diana looks much younger here than she does in the main, like, you know, ongoing part of the book. So it works out in that sense, and for the most part, I think the art's quite pleasant. You know, I think those moments of Steve wrestling the gun out of the guy's hand, or the moments of awkwardness when he's trying to bring up the night before, and like, you know, for both her and Diana are quite good. There's just a couple moments here or there where, like, for example, there's a full page spread when Diana comes in right after the gun wrestling moment, where it's a nice enough full page spread, but there is just something a little bit weird about the way her shoulders kind of up in front of her face. It just the posture just feels a little bit weird and unnatural. So there's just a little bit of that, but for the most part, like all the mice stuff looks great. You know, both the big and little mice, the the one with the saddle, Mouse Man's delightful over the top outfit.
Yeah. I also love that as he's talking, right? He's sitting at the dais, however you pronounce it, and there's that mouse that's with him that is just mimicking him, right? So when he slams and says this body's out of order and slams his fist down, the mouse is doing it, and then later when he says, "You say that to me," with indignation on his chest, the mouse is just, it's so funny.
It is, yeah. And it's just sort of funny that you might not even notice the first time you look at it, and then you look at the mouse again afterwards. You're like, wait, he's mimicking the mouse is mimicking his movements. Exactly. That is very funny.
And then just the action of Diana, the way that she takes off her tiara and then throws it, and then that's how she takes out Mouse Man. There was just a flow to it. Like, I was like, what is she? Oh, it was like a nice surprise. It's something we've seen her do a couple times. But, this is how she does it. It took even him by surprise.
Yeah. I think that page overall, but especially that panel of him getting hit in the face and his skin all wrinkling up, looks really good. I think it's a good, nice cartoony hit in the face.
Yep.
And Steve's whole thing after this is, well, that just seemed too easy. Like, I've never dealt with like a supervillain who controls mice before. I thought it'd be more to it than just one quick hit. And I think that's King kind of setting you up for, it's going to be a lot more complicated in the present day part. Like, this is going to have emasculated Mouse Man so much that he's going to come back with like all sorts of fury.
Yeah, it fits into that's the storyline that he was telling from before about the men and the Amazons and treating them like threat, because initially what Mouse Man's going at is like, the government's controlled by these fat cats, and these fat cats, they're from the big cities, and, foreign money, foreign fat cats, and they're controlling us. And you have these ones that are from Paradise Island, and what are they doing here? What about us? What about the little people? What about us other mice, right? And it's that whole argument that, the government is just using you and you're being lied to, and, it's what the Sovereign had used beforehand. And now,
also, just the fact that he keeps referring to effectively the powers that be as the big cats because he's a mouse, and that works with the whole analogy is funny to me. But I mean, the whole thing here is that he's kind of like touching on the politics of the Amazons being in America, which is obviously something that was talked about before. And just to tie it in completely, at the end of the issue, we see the Sovereign in this time period say that, hey, this whole debacle is going to help us like get this, this law passed that's going to help Amazons come to America. We're going to put a stop to that. Now, clearly, they don't put a stop to it, because the whole plot in the present day part of the story was that there are Amazons here, and it all breaks down because of what happens in the story. But I thought it was interesting to link into that, and it does make me wonder if there's any more connections between the Sovereign and Mouse Man, or if Mouse Man is completely independent in all the things he's been planning and he's up to in the present day stuff. But cool.
I also like this last page with the way like that soft reddish purple light goes over Diana and Steve right before we get to the Sovereign, right, and him sitting there all creepily with his teacup. I just, it makes for this nice little moment. Again, adding levity before it gets too serious.
Yeah, because obviously Steve all being worried that Diana, left him in bed, and her not realizing the suggestions that might make of running away, even if there's something important to go do. So there's just a nice awkwardness to it, and then like they kind of both reveal they both want to see each other again, and it's just kind of a sweet thing. And obviously the context now of him already being dead to us makes it a bit bittersweet. So, I like this issue quite a bit. I definitely liked it more than the last two issues, and I think it's a nice primer to get like the classic. Here was the first Mouse Man story in continuity, at least as far as this run's concerned, and now we get to see what Mouse Man has become. Next time. Like if we had went straight to this issue from that tease, it would have worked maybe even better than having those two fill-in issues. But regardless, we're here now, and we're excited to see where the Mace Men stuff goes, because it's like he's got an army. Of supporters. Because even someone who bases their entire thing on mouse puns can still gain a following by spouting the rhetoric that appeals to a certain group of people.
Yes, and it feels like a certain group of people would take that and make it their entire personality.
Yep.
And so now it took this thing that is pretty, harmless and, into something that's very dangerous.
Yeah, at least that's the vibe of what we think where we're going with it. But we'll find out. So yeah, what were you giving Wonder Woman?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the art is good. Just with the odd little awkward pose or whatever, but I think it worked for the story, and I like what it's built into. It was quite sweet and quite funny for the most part. Well setting some groundwork for what's coming later.